What is going on, everybody? Today I will be previewing some of the biggest Big Ten games of the 2024 college football season. We are just 2 months away from the start of next season, so today I will continue to preview some of the most exciting games of next season. And today we will be covering the Big Ten. And let's start off with the game everybody and their mother is hyped for. And the game I am talking about is the Oregon Ducks versus the Ohio State Buckeyes. These two teams played back in 2019 when Oregon went to Buckeye Stadium and upset Ohio State on the road. And 5 years later, both of these teams will play again. And these are two legitimate Big Ten title contenders and even national title contenders. You could argue that this is a matchup of the best offense in the country versus the best defense in the country. And that's what makes this game very interesting. And honestly, both of these teams have struggled to win the big games. They both have been very good teams. But Oregon lost to Washington twice last season and it kept them from making the playoffs. And of course, we know Ohio State has come up short against Michigan multiple times. And they also lost a heartbreaking postseason game to Georgia in 2022. This could possibly be a matchup of two top 4 teams. And this is a huge opportunity for both of these teams to pick up a win against an elite program and prove that they are a true contender in the Big Ten. Oregon beat Ohio State in 2019, but now they face a Big Ten schedule and they have to prove that they can compete at the highest level in this conference. And Oregon is already a line of scrimmage team. They had one of the top offensive lines in the country last season. And their defense has taken big strides with head coach Dan Lanning. This is a big opportunity for Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks to pick up a massive win. But if Ohio State managed to beat Oregon in Autzen Stadium, that would also be huge for them. And Ohio State returns a lot of NFL talent. They added arguably the best safety in college football, Caleb Downs. They also went and hired Chip Kelly to run the offense. And this game is going to be a massive showdown, and this should be a very important game for both these teams. The next game I want to talk about is Ohio State versus Michigan. This game is going to be very important because this is the last game of the regular season, and the winner of this game could end up making the Big Ten championship. We know how this game has went the last 3 years. Ryan Day could not hear the end of it. Ryan Day and Ohio State have failed to beat Michigan 3 consecutive years in a row. And because of it, Ryan Day has gotten a lot of criticism. But having a high-profile head coaching job will always come with criticism because the standard is set very high at Ohio State. But let's not kick Ohio State in the dust. Because in my opinion, this is still a team very capable of winning a national championship. Look, a lot can happen in 1 year. And Ohio State might have just had the best offseason in college football. I would not be surprised if Ohio State won a national championship next season. Michigan lost a lot, and Ohio State only stacked up their roster even more. Last season, Ohio State only lost to Michigan by 1 possession, and Michigan won the national championship. So I really find it hard to believe that Ohio State can't get the job done in 2024 and beat Michigan after they lost Jim Harbaugh in a lot of production. But if Ohio State does lose to Michigan again, that would definitely be concerning. The college football playoff has expanded to 12 teams though, and Ohio State is probably a lock to make the playoffs. So let's definitely not count out this Ohio State team. But also don't count out Michigan, because this is still a team with probably a top 5 defense in college football. And they did just win the national title last season. This game is going to have very high stakes like always, and I'm definitely looking forward to this matchup. The next game I want to talk about is Michigan versus Oregon. This game has the potential to be a lot of fun. Oregon will have to travel to Michigan for this game, and the weather could play a huge factor in this game. And similar to the games I talked about before this one, this game should really have high stakes, and it should really help determine who gets in that Big Ten championship game. It's going to be interesting to see these two different styles clash. Michigan is more of a ground and pound run team, and they play in a lot of low scoring games, while Oregon can really put up points on the scoreboard and be very explosive offensively. So I'm interested to see if this ends up being higher scoring or lower scoring. It will probably come down to which team gains the momentum and controls the pace of this game, because I could see this game going many different ways, but Oregon should also be very good defensively. They aren't just a very good offensive team, and that is what makes them scary. Michigan has some concerns on offense, but they can be dangerous if they figure it out at the quarterback position. If Michigan has good quarterback play in 2024, I think we could consider them a national title contender again. Oregon has more hype around them heading into next season, but this is going to be a massive test for the Oregon Ducks. And it's not going to be easy to travel to Michigan and pull off the win in this game, so I could honestly see this game going either way. The next game I want to talk about is Penn State versus Ohio State. Penn State goes 10-2 every year. They cannot win the big games and they can't win the Big Ten. That is exactly what we have saw from Penn State recently, and we hear about it all the time. But people need to understand that 2024 could set up Penn State perfectly for a breakthrough year. They have an easy schedule, and their one big game on the season is at home against Ohio State. And I'm telling you, could you imagine how much of a win that would be if Penn State was to beat Ohio State? If they beat Ohio State, they would likely make the Big Ten championship because of an easy schedule. So I wouldn't count out the possibility of Penn State beating Ohio State because they do have that game at home. Penn State returns a lot of their top stars and one of the better backfields in the country. This is a team full of veterans, but there is still a big concern at wide receiver, and that might just hold Penn State back in 2024. They do not have a lot of explosiveness on the offensive side. And honestly, Drew Aller isn't that consistent at quarterback. So I can't tell you I think Penn State will beat Ohio State or make the Big Ten championship game. But if there was any year for Penn State to break through, then it absolutely has to be this upcoming season because they have a decent opportunity with a veteran team and an easy schedule. So I am interested to see what Penn State can do in 2024. And Penn State versus Ohio State is going to be a huge game. The next game I want to talk about is Michigan versus USC. This should be a fun matchup, and I'm interested to see how much that USC defense can improve. They completely revamped the defensive coaching staff, adding former NFL coaches and former high-profile FCS coaches. USC had a very good showing in last season's bowl game against Louisville, and they had a breakout quarterback, and that guy is Miller Moss, and he played incredible. I expect the offense to be really good again, and I don't really have any doubts about that. They have a stud at wide receiver who is Zachariah Branch, and I'm excited to see that matchup between USC's offense and Michigan's defense. USC will have to travel to the Big House for this game, and this should definitely be an interesting game. The next game I want to talk about is USC versus Penn State. Penn State will have to travel 2,574 miles to play USC on the road, and that is absolutely crazy, but that is just the modern landscape of college football. And similar to Michigan versus USC, I'm hyped for this game. USC has struggled against very good defensive teams, and Penn State will probably be a top 5 defense next season. So I'm looking forward to the matchup between USC's offense and Penn State's defense. These two teams played in the 2017 Rose Bowl in which USC won 52-49. USC has the home field advantage in this game, and this game should be a pretty competitive game. The next game I want to talk about is Washington versus Michigan. We don't always get to see a rematch from the previous season's national championship game, and that alone makes this game worth watching. Washington is one of the 4 new teams in the Big Ten, and they will have this game at home against Michigan. And this game is a huge opportunity for them to pull off the upset and get their revenge. Washington lost every starter on offense, and they also lost their head coach. But Washington still may be a sleeper. They reloaded in the transfer portal, and Jedd Fisch was actually a pretty good hire. I'm interested to see how Washington does year 1 in the Big Ten, and Washington versus Michigan should be a fun game. The next game I want to talk about is Wisconsin versus Oregon, and I really think this is a potential trap game for Oregon. This is a late season game on the road for Oregon, and the weather could definitely play a factor in this game. Wisconsin should be a solid team, and this is the type of game Oregon would slip up in. This will be their 8th game in a row without a bye week, and this is the final game before their last bye week and before they play Washington to end the season. I really wouldn't be surprised at all if Wisconsin was competitive with Oregon because they have this game at home, and Wisconsin should also be a very good defensive team. And if they can control the pace of this game, then Oregon might struggle in this game. Oregon has a pretty tough schedule, and I really do believe this could be a sneaky game on the road, and Wisconsin is a pretty interesting team. Luke Fickell is trying to turn this team around, and this could be a huge win for Wisconsin if they were to beat Oregon. So I do have Wisconsin versus Oregon on my list because it should be a very interesting game. The next game I want to talk about is Iowa versus Nebraska. Both these teams could be sleepers to make the college football playoff. They both actually have very easy schedules, and a 10-win season is definitely a possibility if everything goes right. Last season, Iowa won this game, but I'm interested to see who wins this game in 2024. I think Nebraska will be a much better team in 2024. They return a lot of the production from last year. They return a very good coaching staff, and they have a true freshman 5-star quarterback in Dylan Raiola. Dylan Raiola showed early flashes this spring, And I believe Matt Rule has this Nebraska team heading in the right direction. Matt Rule always takes a big leap in year 2. So I really think the bare minimum for Nebraska in 2024 is a bowl game. And I understand Nebraska hasn't had a winning season in almost a decade, but I really think that's going to change in 2024. There's too many signs pointing up. And the game between Nebraska and Iowa could really shake things up, and I'm definitely hyped for that matchup. But the last game I want to talk about is Oregon versus Washington. This game is super important for Oregon because they have lost 3 consecutive games against Washington, and it kept them from making the playoffs the past 2 seasons. Oregon always struggles to win those November games, but in 2024, Oregon has to play them in the final week of the regular season, and this game is a must-win game for Oregon if they want to make the Big Ten championship and have a successful postseason. Washington has had Oregon's number recently, and these two teams really hate each other, and you could probably consider this game one of the top rivalries in the Big Ten now. I'm interested to see this rivalry grow, and this game should be very important. Similar to Iowa versus Nebraska, it will be played in the last week before the Big Ten championship game. So this game could help determine a lot of things, and it should be very exciting. But anyways, that is going to do it for today's video. Let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you will love this channel because we upload a ton of college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel. So definitely consider subscribing. And also consider joining my Discord server down in the description below. But that is going to do it, guys, and peace out.